And you should take care of yourself, Michelle. Be independent. Be this, be that. You're the woman. Take care of yourself.
So I'm not one of those stereotypical Filipinos who's great at singing, although I could have been.
Okay, current generation, we can do something about it, which is why it's called reparenting, because you're not going to go back to your parents and say, Mom, Dad, like, you did that wrong. Can you correct it now?
Welcome to Level Up, Don't Burn Out, the podcast where we explore the balance between career success and well-being. I'm Life Coach Kenn, and I coach managers level up without burning out. The reason why I'm doing this is because in today's fast-paced world, the drive to succeed often clashes with the need for well-being. It's easy to get lost in the hustle, constantly pushing for more culture, but at what cost? This podcast is about finding that balance. Join us as we uncover the stories and strategies of those who've mastered leveling up without burning out.
Hi, this is Life Coach Kenn, and this is Level Up, Don't Burn Out. In our very first episode today, I'm excited to introduce a fellow coach from my coaching cohort, Michelle Lim. Hello, Michelle. Welcome to the podcast.
Hi, Ken. Thank you so much for having me.
To everyone listening, Michelle is the founder of The Mindful Parent. She's a seasoned public speaker, a passionate advocate for personal growth, and an expert in the transformative process of reparenting. And Michelle,
Yes.
what I truly admire about what you do is your unique approach to parenting. Because when we hear about parenting, it's often prescriptive, right? So focused on what to do for your child, what to say, how to do things. But what you emphasize is that as you become a parent, there's also the importance of reparenting ourselves, right? And as
Yes.
someone who's not yet a parent, I can still relate to what you do or what you say because it's really about reconnecting with our inner selves and heal from past wounds. And since I'm a coach that helps prevent burnout, I'm really intrigued in what you do. It's one of the reasons why we experience burnout or anxiety or stress in general is due to unresolved childhood experiences that shape how we navigate our lives as adults. And so, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
Okay, Michelle, for our listeners who might be new to the concept of reparenting, what is reparenting and what led you to this field?
Well, first of all, thank you, Ken, for the encapsulated intro of me already. So just a very quick summary of what reparenting means. Reparenting means a lot of things, but the essence of it is basically reparenting. It's breaking a generational trauma cycle. It's when, because we were taught in a certain way, and so were our parents, and it's not exactly the parents' fault that raised
Right.
the child. However, for the current generation, we can do something about it, which is why it's called reparenting, because you're not going to go back to your parents and say, Mom, Dad, like, you did that wrong. Can you correct it now? Realistically, it doesn't work that way, and hence we have to reparent ourselves by really digging deep and then healing a part of the inner child, exploring, and so that you can actually live that life that you want to its fullest potential.
What I love about what you said is we are not blaming our parents because they themselves, they also went through generational traumas and patterns and they were taught a certain way, right? And
Yes.
especially in the Asian culture where we have such high respect for parents or elders. So we're not
Yes.
saying when we reparent ourselves, we are better than them because there is
No.
no, I mean, they tried their best way. They know how, I mean, they raised us the best way that they probably know how. And
Exactly.
there is no school for parents, although there might as well be, right? But, like what you said, it's acknowledging that we didn't have a perfect childhood. We went through things that probably need some healing first. But
Yes.
but now, Michelle, you're now a parent yourself. So
Yes.
obviously you also want the best for your child, but also having this awareness or knowledge that your children might also go through some things. So how do you come into terms that you also might not be perfect as a parent?
That's a very interesting question. Now, naturally, as a parent, we tend to overthink things a lot. And so I think it's important to come to a point where we have a sense of self, including also self-awareness, where we are like, life isn't perfect and nobody is going to be a 10 out of 10 all the time. And I really always like to remind people around me and my clients included, nobody's a 10 out of 10 all the time. And it's something that you have to remind yourself with each passing day. You will face obstacles that you can't solve immediately. And sometimes it takes a long time. And you have to embrace and be okay with that. And then so that you don't repeat this cycle of like, I have to be perfect. I have to put all this pressure because with perfectionism comes the pressure as well. And the children feel it because they are sensitive creatures like that.
Right.
And yeah, and so that's my take on trying not to be perfect as a parent.
Right.
Yeah.
I like what you said about our children also will feel that, right? Because if you put too much
Yes.
pressure on yourself, and then what impact does that have on the child?
Okay, I can't say because again, nobody's a 10 out of 10 all the time.
Right.
I have seen the impact because I would really beat myself up. I'm like, oh God, I didn't cook. Like I didn't cook today. I should I sleep in? Yeah, like I'm questioning what whether what I'm doing is the right choice for that particular moment. However, if let's say we take a very specific area that we focus on today, let's say for example, right? And I think a lot of parents can relate to this. You have a choice. You want to wake up really early, and this is of course assuming you have extra help at home, you have a partner who's involved. You have a choice. You let your partner wake up early instead. You let him or her take the kids to school versus, oh my God, I'm so guilty. I need to wake up. I should cook them breakfast or recess or something and then bring them to school. But then what are you really exchanging?
Right.
If you're taking up all these things, what are you saying no to? You're
Mm,
saying no to that extra rest. You're saying no to following that extra rest. You can perform better in the rest of the day when you face your children. Because what are you saying? No, you're saying no to all these things. Not having rest, not being able to be in a better mood or energy space when you face the kids the rest of the day. So these are some of the things we have to balance out, and you have to take care of yourself.
so from what I'm seeing is that when you are putting too much pressure on yourself, you are saying no to certain things as well. And part of those is relaxation as well, or being
Yes,
productive in other areas of
cor
your life.
correct. And
Yeah.
here comes the part about the impact on the children. Almost forgot about that.
Mhm.
The impact on the children is that obviously, as every human being without enough rest, of course, I'm taking a very concrete example for this
Mhm.
scenario. Not enough rest, what happens? We get grumpier easier. We have a shorter fuse. We
Mm,
have less
mm,
patience. And that's the impact on the children. And it's not just physically, like you just scold them and they cry. It's also mentally as well. Like the whole mood and energy shifts because the parent isn't
mm.
in such a good, in not at their best self at that point of time.
And you could carry that same mood, that being grumpiness in other areas of your life as well, right?
Of
Um,
course, totally. Yeah.
so for career people, you could, wake up grumpy because I have to do this, I have to be perfect for my children, and then you'd come to
Yes.
work grumpy as
Yes.
well. You'd bring that to work.
Yes. Yes.
And for a lot of achievers or perfectionists, like you
Yeah.
said, burnout seems to be a common theme because if you if you keep doing things in a certain way that eventually it will wear you out, you could experience burnout. And that's where I come in as a coach, preventing against burnout. But in your journey, I'm just really curious if you've experienced burnout yourself, and how did reparenting help you recover from it?
I need to think about it for a couple seconds.
Sure.
Um, But it's really good. Thank you for the question, Ken. I think the majority of us have faced a burnout in some phase or certain
Mhm,
phases of our life.
mhm,
And um, I would say, and I will try to keep the story as short as possible, but the first, it's not fair to say be the first, but one of the burnouts that I really experienced and I remember clearly was when I became uh, a single parent.
mm,
And yes, and your points are extremely valid. Like I wanted to be that super parent. I needed it to be perfect to make up all the, in my mind, the shortcomings that my kids would have because I was a single mother. I'm like, oh my
mm,
gosh, I have to fill the father role. I have I have to bring, the income. I have to earn enough money. I have to make sure they have all the things they need and want. And so that was extremely, extremely like pressurizing. And
mhm,
it's nobody, it's just me. And that's when I realized it was after, and it was a long time, it was a year or so. And I was just burned out to the point where I lost interest pretty much everything, except for the
mm,
kids, obviously. But even then, I felt like I was a robot going through the motion. There was no spirit, there was no fire. I had a great mask to socialize, but inside, deep inside, there was really nothing much. That sense of self that I talked about earlier on was not really there. And then I realized, and then subconsciously, I think I self-coached myself and to help me, in your words, to level up from that burnout. I
right.
realized, like Michelle, like back in the day, we used to have a village to parent our kids. We don't really have
Mhm,
that anymore in today's age.
mm,
But it's still there, and it's up to us whether we want to create it. Because actually, there are a lot of people that they literally like put a virtual hand out, like, "Hey, I'm here. If you need someone
mm,
to take the kids for a few hours, if you need to, I don't know, run an errand, like we would be happy to be there." And so I think that big step was to like reach out for the hands that were reaching out
mm.
towards me. I have to bridge that gap and to actually come out of that burnout, and then also to be able to do things for myself, just Michelle, not as a mom, not as a colleague, just Michelle. And so yeah, that was a huge burnout moment that I experienced.
It really takes a village to raise a child. That statement did not come from nowhere. And so, Michelle, I'm just really curious, why did you have that belief that you have to be perfect or you have to be racing and doing things on your own?
ah I need to try to keep this short as well, but it came from a long history of, my mom also went through very difficult marriages, and she was a
Mhm,
single parent for quite some time, and she would just drill in me like, men are, I'm sorry, no offense to all the men out there, and including you, Ken, because it's not true, I know, but she would really
mm,
drill into me like almost, yeah, like men are like, useless, and you should
mm,
take care of yourself, Michelle. Be independent, be this, be that.
mm.
You're the woman. Take care of yourself. Don't rely on anybody. And so I think that's why I had this notion within me, like it was, into my childhood,
Mm.
really, really strongly enforced. And so subconsciously, I think that took over my physical self and my mental self. And like, okay, I need to keep going. I need to, I also had a bit of that perfectionism challenge within me. Like, I need to do this. I need to show the girls something, that
Right.
I can do it. And um, yeah, and so that's where the belief came from, and I had to really step out of that because it's not true. Not all men are useless.
Mm.
Not all of society is unreliable. I have people that I can rely on and where I can ask and seek help from.
I'm so happy that you got over that. So, w- what were the things that you did to you said you self-coached yourself, right? So I'm just really curious how that self-coaching looked like. What were some activities or exercises that you did to get over that belief?
It's gonna sound um maybe a little strange to some people or unusual, I would say unusual. It was a lot of really talking out loud, writing things down, like a list of
Mm,
what do I need, right?
mm,
What do I need and what can I control and not control? It was probably not as categorized um in my head back then as it is now. Like I have the terminology for it.
mhm,
But when you're
mhm,
in that space and long before I embarked on this coaching journey, um I had this like list of things, these are important and these are less important. In which areas do I need help? Is it babysitting? Is it just running an errand for
mhm,
me? And then the other things like, okay, I can take care of, if let's say the house chores, obviously it has to be
mm,
taken care of me, but can it come later? What can wait? And so I had like a list that was part on paper and part mentally as well. And often also to actually get these these stream of thoughts out of my head, I would actually live stream back in the day. And it
Oh,
was like around COVID time as well. So lots of these things are going on. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember COVID days.
of course.
Um, yeah, so live streaming was so hot back then. I was like, I just went online, I talked to people, and this slowly, like, because as a single mother back then, and COVID on top of, you didn't get to go out. You didn't get to
Mhm,
go out, you didn't get to mingle with people. So who do you turn to then? Being alone at home with two young kids. So I turned to my live streaming and I'm like, I talk to people, people ask questions. And slowly, as the more I talked, the more I made sense of what direction I was heading in and how to help myself while helping the people on my live stream as well. And that
mhm.
was it was an eye-opening process. So two things, the live streaming, talking through the process and having that list of like, what can I do and control and what can't.
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
have like a practical exercise of writing and
Yes.
practicality on who can I turn to, things
Yes.
like that, but also
Yes.
communicating it, although
Yes.
in this sense, live streaming,
Yes.
finding an outlet. So we
Yes.
have to look for those. We have to look for those videos. Those still online?
Oh, I think they don't. It was a TikTok, so I don't think
I
they
see.
record those. Yeah.
Oh, so TikTok, I see.
Yeah, yeah.
So a little plug for your TikTok. Do you want to plug your TikTok?
Ah, no. Thank you, but it's just for fun. I haven't really
Sure.
started my coaching TikTok, so I don't think you guys need to see me like doing silly dances and stuff.
You never know. But anyway,
Yeah.
I respect that. But um, reparenting often involves revisiting our childhood experiences,
Yeah.
right? Like you said,
Yes.
this belief of men being, let's just say, not worthy, or men being very taking advantage. That belief, you had to get over that, and so
Yes.
I'm just wondering, how do you start to identify that maybe this childhood event or this childhood belief is no longer working or may not be true for me right now? Like, what
Hmm.
should we look out for?
This one is really tough. It takes, and I'm not saying that I was so great or perfect back then. No, but I do have to admit it takes a huge level of self-awareness
Mm,
and being open to what's around you and not just within your world. Because childhood it's like that. It's like a little, I like to
mm,
call it like a little sphere of
mm.
things that our parents like, have you seen Inside Out? That
Of
movie?
course.
Yeah. So for those of you that have watched Inside Out, they have little like memory orbs, right? And
Mm,
then you have Family Island and Sports Island, and etc. etc. And so childhood is pretty much that. And but you also, once your mind opens up as you go into teenagehood and adulthood, you have to be more self-aware to get to the point where you're like, hey, sure, my parents taught me this in or whatever in a
mm,
certain way and in their belief. But when you come to that stage of maturity or emotional maturity more and mental maturity, you're like, oh, I'm seeing the world. I observe other people. It takes a lot of people watching, literally. people watching and just talking and getting out there and say, oh, so then I had to reframe my mindset. Oh, not all men are take advantage of women.
Mm-hmm.
Not all men are bad, evil beings like what I was taught they were. And there are good and bad people everywhere.
Mm.
And so and this could apply to any area in your life, basically, whatever, maybe somebody like my music teacher, for example. He just walked by me and I was 9 or 10. He's like, Michelle, you're musically deaf. Quit music.
Mm.
And that shaped a huge part of my life in the early stages. But then again, what do you do to overcome it? That self-awareness, go out and explore, and just one comment, yes, it beats you down like crazy as a kid because that's your whole world, right? But then to step out as an adult and say, hey, let me try again. I think never try, never know, right? It's a great, I don't know whether this saying is used outside of Singapore or Asia, but like, never try, never know. Just use that. Go in and try and prove it to yourself. But if you love something enough or you're interested in something enough, you will eventually find out one day, I'm going to shape my own point of view. I'm going to shape my own reality. And this is what it is. And it doesn't have to be necessarily everything that your parents shaped you to be.
Mm. I just find it amazing how the human brain is wired. For example, like we we spend a few years in childhood, but for some reason, those core memories, like what you said in Inside Out,
Yes.
they stick to us. And it takes a
Yeah.
conscious effort to let that go, to
Yes.
let those
Yes.
beliefs go. Like what you
Yes.
said, a lot of exposure to more people, exposure to a lot of different beliefs out there, and
Yes.
trying out what works for you, what doesn't work for you.
Yes.
It's very interesting what you said about music. If I may, I would just like to share a
Yeah.
personal story as
Of
well.
course.
In fourth grade, I actually made it to a choir. I mean,
Oh,
we had to audition. I made it to the
yeah.
choir. I was so happy. I told my parents about it. I was very proud.
Oh,
We won the competition. But after that, my my brother told me that, did you know that our dad talked to the choir teacher to let you in? You know that, right? And I was like, and since then, my confidence for singing just like went out. And even though that I confirmed that that story is not true, that belief stuck with me. And, I had to let it go. I
yeah.
also tried singing as well, like as an adult, because, like what you said, we have to try things out, and
Okay.
it it somehow didn't materialize. But at least I tried, right?
Yeah.
I had to try it out. So I'm not one of those stereotypical Filipinos who's great at singing, although I could have been.
Okay.
Yeah, anyway. So
Well,
yeah,
wow. Yeah. Thank you for sharing your story as well.
yeah. Thank you for listening as well to all our listeners as well. So I'm just really curious if you have, to our listeners, if you probably recall some stories as well that led you to a certain belief that may no longer work for you, that you could let go. Let us know in the comments.
Mm,
So anyway,
yes.
Michelle, do you have practical exercises or practical things that you recommend that we do when we want to practice the self-compassion or reconnecting with our inner child?
Just sit down. Sit down and find some space for yourself. And also this would tie in with your burnout topic as
Mm-hmm.
well. Sometimes we come to a point in life where we just sometimes sit there and like, what am I doing here today?
Mm,
And or the reverse opposite, you don't get that time to sit down. And you're so busy that you forget to do self-care, right?
right.
Things, chores pile up, task after task, work, kids, parents, you name it. Uh, Consciously make that time once a week. Doesn't have to be every day, right? Once a week, you just sit down for 10 minutes,
Mm,
10 minutes, and ask your inner child, which this is quite challenging, and it's worth an exercise. Ask your inner child, what are the needs that you had that was never met?
Wow.
Right? And if you guys, if the listeners or the viewers can, and maybe even yourself can, like, because I like to revisit the topic of love languages.
Mm.
They're very easy, right? They're only 5.
Mm-hmm.
Take those 5, really read out what they're about, and then go back to your inner child and ask your inner child, what is it that you needed? What is it you really need? It's not a want anymore. What do you need? Is it physical touch? Is it just a hug to make you feel better that
Mm-hmm.
day and recharge? Do you need your partner to hug you? And to prevent burnout, even maybe some people recharge that way. Is
Mm-hmm.
it words of affirmation, right? Did you get that when you were a child? Maybe those were the things that were lacking, like your parents ever said, oh, I'm so proud of you. You did a good job. Maybe you need that, really sit down and reflect on those 5 the 5 types of love languages and what do you need? Not
Mm-hmm.
want, what do you need?
Right.
That will help fill up that self-love meter again. And don't forget, not just asking so-called external, like your partner, your kids, or your friends to help you recharge that. You yourself, this is the number one most challenging things when I hold workshops and I ask participants to write down a list of at least 3 things they think are their strengths or what they are good at. A lot of times, people can't even write down one thing.
Ooh.
And that's something that you need to develop. You have to see the good things about yourself and tell yourself, if let's say I don't have anyone at the moment to meet one of my 5 love languages, how can I do it for myself? And that is the strongest self-help tool you could ever gift yourself, I think.
Mm. I love how you navigated the question, Michelle, because I asked the question on a practical exercise or what you can do specifically, but you answered it with sometimes it's not about doing things, it's not doing something, because we've been
Yeah,
so used to just do. I
yeah.
have to do this. Yeah, but when was the last time you just stop, think, what is it that I need? Right? And I love what you said about love language because it's such an easy tool, but at the same time, the realizations after doing that exercise, just to share a story, I actually
Yeah.
realized that this is very recently. I realized that my I've been denying a certain love language because I thought that it
Mhm.
was not important for me. And then I
Mm.
just talked to my wife, and then I said, I just realized that I'm a gifts person. But for such a long time, I said that gifts is not an important love language for me. Yeah, so
Oh,
it took a
okay.
lot of honesty and a lot of self-reflection for me to realize,
Yeah.
hey, I
Yeah.
do appreciate gifts as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm,
Wow. Well, that's a real it's a good amount of self-awareness, and
mm,
I'm so happy you can openly communicate that to your partner. It's so
mm.
important.
Yeah. That's also one thing, communicating with someone who means a lot to you. And but what you said
Yes.
that it might not be true for everyone, right? Not everyone
Yes.
has a partner. So you can do it for yourself. The first
Yes.
person that to love is yourself. Yeah.
Yes.
So, Michelle, I would just
Yeah.
like to shift gears a bit because this
Sure.
podcast is also for those striving to level up in their respective careers without
Yes.
losing themselves in the process. Is there a correlation between reparenting with career advancement? Because when we talk about the way we talked about reparenting for the past few minutes is always about the personal self, about self-care. But I'm wondering if there is any correlation that when you revisit and heal from childhood experiences, reparent yourself, is
Yeah.
there any correlation to career advancement?
Oh, this is a really very good question, and I actually have addressed it quite a number of times in my recent workshops.
Mm,
This is very interesting. Let me see how I can frame it. It's definitely very strongly correlated, actually.
mm,
For example, I have a client she actually approached me for public speaking. However,
wow.
at, at the end of the day, it was the it was the confidence building more than just the public speaking. Public speaking is very technical. If you're just looking at the technical aspects of how to project the voice and stuff. But then comes the confidence element, where that of course stems from a certain mental image or mental belief that you have. She has like, I can't do presentations because I'm facing stakeholders that are I feel like, the imposter syndrome. I feel like
Right.
they're at this level and I'm like here. And so then we have to dig and find out, where is that feeling coming from? It's not because your boss thinks you're lousy, so that's not him. So we X that out already. So what is it then? And then we revisit back, and not surprisingly, a lot of the time, somewhere along the way in their journey, in their younger days, somebody said, maybe not in those exact words, but maybe the actions or words that are similar in tone, you're not good enough. You don't do well in this area. And that's where the reparenting comes in, because this is where people sometimes think, because the reparenting word itself has parenting in it. But parenting or the teaching or raising of a child doesn't only happen through parents. It happens through nannies. It happens through teachers. It happens through at any touch point of a child's life, as long as it's been some sort of an educator or someone who has been part of your upbringing in your life, no matter how small, right? It can be very big, but it can also be like little fragments of your younger days, and at least all the way up to university life, actually, because that's all the like a huge amount of formative years. And we always somehow revisit that, and then we get reparented, because how do we boost our confidence levels? By getting that little bit of past out of the way. We challenge it, we step out of the comfort zone. So yes, for career advancement or even just normal trying to be more presentable at work, sometimes it really boils down to that little bit of reparenting the past. So yes.
Yeah, because sometimes we tend to compartmentalize career, life, relationships, but without
Yes.
knowing that they interact with each other. And like what you said,
Yes.
that confidence issue was coming from an orb from childhood that she still carries. I
Yes.
mean, your client still carries
Yes.
to her career.
Yes.
Speaking of public speaking, Michelle, I would be remiss if I didn't acknowledge that you were also Mrs. Singapore. You were
Oh,
also in the pageant industry at some point. So I'm just really curious, how did you develop that voice and confidence on stage?
what can I say? Ken, can I tell you a little fun fact about myself?
Sure.
I'm a natural, strong introvert.
Mm.
I am not an extrovert whatsoever. Even up until today, after having like outdoor, like external meetings, I need to go back home and recharge my social battery. That's how bad it is sometimes.
Yeah.
So, to try and get to get to the pageant industry and to actually stand there up on the stage, I think it stems from, I wanted to do something for myself. I all my life, I really didn't do much for myself, because, and that might be a story for another day, but I was bullied a lot during my childhood. Even including my teachers. They bullied me
Wow.
because I was Asian. I didn't grow up in an Asian setting. I grew up in Europe, and they didn't like Asians. So my confidence levels were like at basement 4 to visualize that. It was bad. And I had a very messy family background, always fighting. And so I came to a point in my adult life where I was like, I've always dreamt of standing on this stage and what kind of impact I would have. Because it's about beauty, one, but it's not just about that. Because once you have the title, once you're a title holder, and you stand up there, and throughout that journey, you have to stand for something. And I wanted to do that. I wanted to have a voice, which I felt like I never had in my life. And so I developed it through training, of course, some some sort of training, and I went back home and I practiced and I practiced. It's like, okay, I did a lot of visualization and mental exercises for like, okay, when I go up there, I'm going to smash it. I'm going to smash it. I'm going to take a deep breath, do breathing exercises and stuff. And it really became something a little bit more comfortable to be in that kind of a position. And I actually got the title, as you said, yes, Mrs. Singapore, and I hold an
What year was
international
this?
title. 2016.
Okay.
Yes, and then an international pageant in 2021, right at the end of COVID, I think. Yes,
Wow.
which was Mrs. World Peace. And yeah, and so I was glad because I got to use the title to do lots of good stuff and community projects, and this is how I found my voice partly.
Congratulations on being Miss World Peace. And we all need that right now. We need healing to attain world peace.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I like what you said that you did this for yourself, and in a way
Yes.
it was a form of healing, recovering from the bullying that you received as a child.
Yes.
So in a way,
Yes.
it's still part of reparenting, right?
It is. It is. It is
Yeah.
because my parents were like, you'll grow over it, but you don't really grow over these kind of things. So
Mm,
where I wish they had said like, Michelle, they're wrong, or like, this is how you stand up for yourself. Let me teach and support you. Let me there was nobody wiping my tears. I just cried in the
mm,
bathroom. And so that's where, like you said, the reparenting comes in, and I just have to heal it myself.
mm. Yeah. It is our also responsibility in a way to heal, right? Because like what you said earlier in the episode, it's not like we can go back to our parents. Hey,
Yeah. Yeah.
reparent me again.
Yes.
Yeah. Anyway, Michelle, as much as I'd like to talk more, we're nearing the
Yeah.
time of
Okay.
the end of our podcast. But so if there's anyone who would need reparenting tips or would like to know more about you or your services, how can they get in touch with you?
Well, you can always get in touch with me via my Instagram profile, which is the Mindful Parent.
Mm-hmm.
Mindful with double L because it's kind of a wordplay.
Mm,
So, mind, but the mind is always full, and so the Mindful Parent. Or you could always get in touch with me via email. Drop me an email, and you can always find a link there where you can join my healing and discovery call. My
mm.
email is michelle.lim@themindfulparent.com. So please feel free, and whenever you are ready.
Right. I'd also drop the links and what you said on the description down below,
Yeah.
along with my link as well, if you want to get in touch with me as a coach. Finally, what message would you like to leave our listeners with? Like, is there a particular mindset or mantra that you believe can help them on their journey towards leveling up without burning out?
My message to you guys would be that you are not alone on this journey, and nobody should. So whenever you're ready, take that hand that is out there that's willing to help and support you. Level up, but don't burn out, as in the words of
Wow.
Ken.
Thank you for the plug as well. Level up, don't burn out. All right. Thank you, Michelle. Thank you so much. It's been such a fun but insightful conversation that we had. I enjoyed talking to you about reparenting, and to our listeners, keep listening and check out this podcast as we'll have more stories soon. Bye.
Yes, thank you so much, Ken. Goodbye, everybody.